As you're designing, there's some principles that you would need to keep in mind, and these are best practices to create really great XR experiences. The first thing is paying attention to the world space versus the screen UI. Even in the virtual reality environment that's fully enclosed, people are still in the real, very much real space. So, always making sure that those two worlds are in sync is really good. But when it comes to AR, if you're overlaying something in the screen in the real world, you would want to pay attention to the world space, which is that top area here. We could see what the actual world is like through the camera. UI elements are bound to a specific part of the screen. So you would want to make sure that those things are consistent, especially any kind of heads up display or UI that is mapped to either the bottom or the top or somewhere else in the screen there. Onboarding is basically when you're using a new application. That's how people learn how to use your app. And apps have many tutorials that are just part of how the app is going to be naturally used. So emulate that same way. If there's a walkthrough that you need to take them through based on the workflow, like they have to start at one point, tell them what they need to do at the start, and then tell them what they need to do later when they're at that next point. You want to avoid teaching people everything at once because they'll forget anyway. And people get bored real quick. When you are explaining things, it's better to have less text, keep it very simple, use a lot of icons and graphics, or just literally show them what to do with arrows and other hints, like make something glow so that they know what to do next. Encourage people to move around, check out the environment, because that will help get them acquainted with how everything is. Safety. This is very important because they have to be aware of their space when they're looking at something through the camera. Keep the screen, the world view clear as much as possible so that they can see the context around the UI and avoid distracting users. Accessibility, help them successfully view and understand this information. It's good to provide different ways that they can experience the app. If they have to move something, let's say something is far away, but they can touch it and look at it, maybe you could zoom into it, depending on how far away they are, so that they can see what to do. Provide alternative ways. They could swipe at something, they could tap on something as well. If you want to target something, instead of just pointing to it, maybe they could just use the keys to select something, because not everyone's going to be very proficient at targeting. When it comes to instructions, make sure that the text is very high contrast so it's readable and it's visible from different angles as well. Maybe a sign followed them or could pivot around something as the user moves around it. That way they can always see what that is. For mobile experiences, good to prevent use of the application where they have to hold it up for so long, having haptics so they can feel the phone vibrate when they have to do something, or if it's hooked up to the watch, you can vibrate the watch. And then audio instructions too would be really good to help augment that and keep people comfortable. And speaking of keeping people comfortable, we want to make sure that the interactions are just within the user's field of view. We have obviously a limited way to turn our heads. Try to keep it within that field of view and within 32 feet so that they can see it. When it comes to any kind of motion, keep that at a consistent speed, reduce a lot of rotations or spinning there. And even the sounds, make it match the environment, because your brain gives you that sort of motion sickness with VR. Your brain is seeing something on the screen, but then your body is stationary, so just making sure that things are in line. What could help would be any fixed graphics that user can focus on. Ballet dancers do the same thing, like when they're doing their spins, they spin and they look at something straight ahead and they spin and they look at the same place, and that prevents them from actually getting sick.